Zero, and we are live. Welcome everyone to the Feel Inspired podcast. My name is Amit Sodha, your amazing, delectable host. And today I got an extra special episode, something a little bit different as well, which is fantastic. We always love a little bit different. We love quirky. We love out there. And I have an incredible guest, and today's a little bit different as well because she and I go way back. And actually, funny enough, I think I was just thinking about it before we started the live today, which was obviously how we met. And Vaishali and I met as we were both crewing for Tony Robbins back in 2007. And I remember that because I went back in 2006, and then I went back as a volunteer when we met at 2006. I met Lena, who's a friend of ours who's no longer with us, sadly. But anyway, I met Lena, and I walked up to her and I said, how did you get to crew? And she kind of like giving this sort of a blank stare type of thing, was like, oh, I don't know, just applied through some website, and then that was it. And then, but then after that, when I volunteered the next year, we all became friends, including Lena as well. We all became really good friends. And so yeah, I was just thinking about that, and I was thinking about how far we've all come since then as well. And but yeah, so anyway, without further ado, let's kick off. Welcome everyone once again, like I said, to the Feel Inspired podcast. This is the go-to place to be inspired in your day-to-day life. This is episode 47 as well, so I'm very much approaching that big milestone of 50 episodes. But today I wanted to bring Vaishali on as well because she's done quite a number of different things. Actually, we'll get to the TED stuff a little bit later, and of which being a TEDx speaker is one of them. But she does a number of different things. She is a coach as well. She's into marketing and a number of other different things. So I wanted to bring her on today so we could just dig into her brain, kind of tease out as much information as we possibly can while we're here. So without further ado, welcome to the Feel Inspired podcast, episode 47, Vaishali. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you, Amit. It's such a pleasure to be here. And I love the recap that you did on how we met and how we became friends. And yeah, it's been a while. We had such a great time as well. Really such a great environment to meet in, and volunteering and making a difference to other people at Tony Robbins, doing the fire walk and getting all G'd up, and it was such an amazing time.
Do you remember, were we at that one as well where we ended up doing the fire eating as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was so scared.
My God.
I closed my eyes, so I nearly burnt my eyelashes because I was so scared.
I love it. Well, what's interesting about that, we obviously, you actually have like a crew leader, right? So in that case, I don't know if Steve Lind is still around. Hey, Steve, if you are. But I remember him well. He was our crew leader, and we sort of snuck around the back, and we were sort of under those stairs at the Excel and stuff, and we ended up doing this fire eating thing. And like Vaishali said, I was as nervous as hell as well. I'm not really a fan of fire. We've done fire walking, but fire eating was another thing altogether. And I don't know if you remember this as well. One of the guys who did the fire eating, because you have this metal stick and the little furry marshmallow thing, and you light that, you dip it in alcohol and you light that. One guy actually put it in his mouth, and that furry thing stayed in his mouth, and he took it out, and he's like, and then everyone realized, where's the thing? Is it still in your mouth? Is it like, must be burning you? But he was absolutely fine in the end. But what a great experience that was to do stuff like that. And not only that, for and anyone who's probably possibly been to a Tony Robbins or not, it's when you do UPW, it's like a 4-day event, right? So even at the event itself, it's very intensive. Generally speaking, you're arriving at 8 o'clock in the morning. It goes on till at least 10, 11 at night. And, and even then it sometimes carries on even longer. But when you're crewing, it's another level altogether, isn't it? You're up at, 6 a.m. at least, if not earlier than that. And then you're, not usually in bed till about 12, 1 o'clock. And you're doing that for 5 days straight.
Yeah.
And it's so intensive, but you come away so energized and feeling so good. And so I just had all these fond memories anyway, but I thought I would just mention that because obviously, like I said, we go way back. Maybe that's 15 years ago as well.
Gosh, it sounds like such a long time ago. But
I know, right?
No, it was brilliant. I remember you, Amit, as being someone really inspiring because you were writing this blog and you were a life coach, and I'd never even heard of a blog and what a life coach was. And I remember, you were doing a lot of work with young kids, and I thought that was quite admirable what you were doing with like being a mentor for young children and then raising money for a young guy for a wheelchair. I remember that.
Yeah.
So, you introduced me to this whole world of like things that I hadn't even heard of from my very straight corporate lifestyle. You know what I mean?
Bless. Oh, you got good memory though. Yeah, I mean, I started doing the blogging thing along. It's been 17 years now since I started that blog, and obviously been coaching for even longer than that. But yeah, I think I remember that as well. We ended up doing the children's class there as well, didn't we? We looked after the kids there as well while we were at Tony Robbins, especially during the Dickens process. That's where they get all the kids to leave, and then we ended up looking after the kids. But it was so much fun though, so enjoyable. So I wanted to pick your brain about loads of things actually, but let's start from not from the beginning, like as in when you were born, but as in like let's start from how you got to the point where you are today. Of course, being a TEDx speaker. From where you were. So what kind of path did you follow, like from the Tony Robbins days and all of that kind of stuff, being just working in a corporate environment to where you are now? Like what got you to this point, and obviously you love traveling, you do improv, and you do a whole host of other things as well. So what got you to this point? What made you choose this path?
Do you know what? I was just thinking about how do I tell you how did I choose the path? And the fact is, I kind of stumbled upon things as I went along, because I wasn't born and thinking at 10 years old I want to be a TEDx speaker. It wasn't even in my realm then. It wasn't even something that I even thought I could do. It was someone that was on a pedestal that does that kind of stuff, right? But I remember like being a young kid and thinking I want to be like Mother Teresa. Right. I was really inspired by the difference that she was making to others and how the media portrayed her. And I thought, oh, that's a nice thing to do. And then I went to school, and I remember I thought, oh yeah, I might want to be a counselor, because counselors help people, and I quite like that. And then when I was at school, I used to always get up, even in assemblies. I'd be shaking from infant school to secondary school to university. I'd be shaking, but I'd still put my hand up, get on stage, and read something in assemblies. And I might look down and not look up, but at least I was on that stage and I read something. Or I remember taking part in school plays, and I was in Cats, and I was in Oliver Twist. I was the person that gave the food, and when Oliver said, "Do you want more?" Like, I want more, and I went, more. And so I was always someone that was like, I guess I was a performer, maybe not always confident or self-expressed, but I always put my hand up to take those opportunities to be on stage. And I remember a teacher saying to me, "You got a big mouth, you'd be really good in marketing." And it just stuck with me. Everything through high school to college to university became about marketing. And would I have chose it as a young child? I don't know, but I think I was quite influenced by that comment. And there I went into a whole career of marketing, very influenced by a couple of my cousins, both from the US. One was training to be a doctor, and she was an entrepreneur, and but they were both used to travel and a lot. And whenever they came to London, I always felt very drawn to their way of being, because they're very open, non-judgmental, lively, and I just liked that kind of whole way of being. And when they used to talk about traveling to these different countries, I would just get so elated and excited. And, it would always be in the back of my mind, like, I can't wait to go there. I can't wait to see that, because I'm definitely someone that's very curious and loves to see, learn and to see things. And so I was very inspired by them. I remember that thinking, oh, I want to live by myself, and I want to travel the world, and I want to have be successful in my career. So they really influenced. I was really influenced by them. And then I got to my 20s, and I always took corporate. I was in the corporate world because that's kind of what you do. Where in my culture, my conditioning, all of that, it was we go to from college to university to a job, and if it's in the corporate world, great. And if you're a doctor or a lawyer or this, you're like, you made it, you know. But I was like going down the marketing route, and I remember just loving working for international companies where I got to talk to lots of European teams or lots of global teams. My God, if I ever got to work with South America, I was so ecstatic because that was a place I wanted to go to. And so then what happened was I would like travel through work and go to all these places. And I really loved it, really enjoyed it. So at this point, still, none of the TEDx stuff or coaching or any of that was there for me in my realm. And I got to about 20. I got to the end of my 20s, and I was in a job I didn't like. Our mutual friend Lena, had passed away. I had just done a solo travel trip to Japan to someone I was set up on a date with, all the way in Japan, because I was only the crazy person that would ever do something like that. And I came back from there thinking, I can do this. Like when I was in Japan, I was like, wow, people are so friendly. I was literally stood at the train station looking at a map because I didn't know how to navigate. And these Japanese people came up to me and said, hey, can I help you? And at this point, I was like, so surprised. Like, these are strangers and they want to help me. And I think before I was probably had a very distrusting nature of strangers, very suspicious nature. But I was like, oh, wow. And it just, that moment was so pivotal because it made me believe that there are generous people in the world. There are nice strangers in the world, and I can totally do this. And when I say do this, is I always wanted to travel throughout my 20s, but I never did it because there was always work. You know, you can't leave work to go traveling. The perception is it's it's not a responsible thing to do, right? So, but I got to this point and I thought, like, life's too short. My friends just died. Uh, what am I scared of? I just did a 2-week trip and saw the world is friendly, and there's so much to see and do. So I decided that I was going to go, and I went to India for a month, and I just traveled around and went to villages with my aunt, and just saw a very different side of India, which I liked because it was very simple village life, which was great. Um, and then I came back and I booked to go to China, and I was there for 6 months teaching English in a country that I knew nothing about because I wanted to go somewhere where no one knew me and I knew no one and I knew nothing. So I could just be one of the greatest things about that was I could be anything there then because I didn't have to be any I didn't have to play any role. Like I didn't have to be a daughter. I didn't have to be the sister, the aunt, the niece. I didn't have these roles have expectations. And I didn't have to be any of those when I was out there. I was literally this blank canvas of who am I going to be in this situation? Oh, I'm normally shy, but can I just be a bit adventurous? Can I just like try this? And it was brilliant because it actually felt like the first week of freshers at university, which I never did. So I felt like my whole 4 months was this one whole long week of freshers week stretched out. And I put myself in situations like teaching English to classes of 55 kids that I'd never done before, and just discovered how best to do that with the students. Push the boundaries a little bit, taught them about Mr. Bean and Christmas, which you're not supposed to, but hey, sometimes you got to teach them what they need to know because they were going to be coming to countries like the UK and America and need to blend in with the culture. So I pretty much did my own thing with them, which was brilliant. And then I went to Australia for a year, and I lived out on the West Coast and traveled a lot of the country on my own, and then went to New Zealand. And New Zealand was amazing because I did a road trip with a girl that I just met in Tasmania, who we both decided we wanted to do a road trip. So we met in Auckland. And then on the day that we met there, we said, you know what, we should probably get a third person to split the petrol costs. So I jumped online, found couch surfing, put a message on there, we're looking for someone, does anyone want to travel? And this American girl said, hey, I'd like to, I'm having a party tonight, come and meet me. So we went that evening to her party, we met her, we liked her. The next day, the three of us were at the car garage, hired the car, and off we went for a month. We were on this road trip. And this American girl had taught us about couch surfing and how we can stay at people's homes for free and get to know them, and they get to know us. And that's it. So literally, we road tripped around New Zealand, and then we couch surfed. And we met the most incredible, interesting families who lived in different ways. Like one person lived on top of a cliff, and they had like probably about 50 animals. And they seemed to have room for all four of us, because we picked up a hitchhiker on the South Island, which I'd never done before. This guy from America. We decided, you know what, we want to split our petrol costs even more. So we saw this guy and we're like, should we pick him up? It's like, yeah, okay. So he decided to join us. We thought we might need a bit of protection. So picked him up, and then off we went. And we always found homes that catered for all four of us, and we all had rooms. We never had to sleep on a couch. And we met the most incredible families that wanted to learn about us and our cultures and our backgrounds. And all we did was cook for them as a way of exchange. And it was brilliant. And I'd learned to trust other people through that process. It was, and like, never judge and be open. And I remember coming back from that trip a completely different person, and thought, I don't really want to do the whole corporate thing. I'm going to try. All I had at that time in my head was teaching. And so I thought, yeah, I want to teach. And so I started to go into schools and sit down, and I was thinking, I know I want to teach, but it just doesn't feel like I can stay in a classroom all day, especially the one after lunch break, and teach. It felt really like, no, I'm not sure about this. So then I ended up going back into the corporate world for a bit. And then I started doing some personal development work with a company called Landmark. And through that, I realized I really enjoyed coaching. And I thought, oh, this is it. This is what I really enjoy doing. This is what I really like. And I was doing that for 6-7 years there. And I started to build up a clientele from that, because it was something I was good at. And I stepped into some healing work as well. So I was doing healing, I was doing coaching. I'm still doing it now, and was really enjoying it. And one of the things that I discovered was, through the work, was this question that one of the global leaders at the company asked me. He said, what lights you up? I was like, what? He said, what lights you up? And I thought, I don't know what lights it. He goes, what lights you up? What inspires you? What sets you free? And I thought, I don't know, like travel, but I don't know. And I remember going to the park one day, sitting down and asking myself, what lights you up, Vaishali? What inspires you? What makes you feel free? And when I reflected back to my childhood, it was always sort of linked to the creative arts. So art, dance, drama. I used to watch Top of the Pops and get really excited, like anything.
We may have to explain that one to the international audience, possibly. Carry on.
So Top of the Pops is this show that used to come on once a week, and they'd have all these people who had singles or albums out in the charts, and they'd come on and they'd sing, but it was like such a UK icon at the time. Until they realized that
it's basically the UK version of the chart show on TV. Basically, was what it was, isn't it? Like, all the number one artists, top artists, the top 40. That's what it was on TV, though.
Yeah, it was brilliant. I would sit there mesmerized, and then I'd watch anything sort of live shows, live theatre, live music. Anything was just like, it gave me a buzz. It felt like it gave me energy. It gave me, like, I loved it. And I sat there, I thought, this is what lights me up. It's all this live music, live dance. And when I got that, I started improvisation theatre classes, so acting classes, and I absolutely loved it. I I, grew as a improv theatre actor, but saw that I could just jump on stage and create a scene in the moment, and I could be any character I wanted to be, and it just felt so unreal. Again, it took me away from the role that I play in life to being anyone I wanted to be. And I also did more Latin dance. I used to do a lot of salsa, etc. And that it used to feel like a drug. Like I'd come home and the next day it's like like this huge down from this huge elation. It was just wonderful. So as I was doing more of that, I started to. It was interesting because I started to become more self-aware of myself. And I started to see things about myself. Like when I go dancing, there's some men that I feel really connected to, and I flow, my body flows in the partner dance. But there's some men that's like really stiff, and they're usually going to be, I'm the man, let me lead. And I'm like, well, lead then. Or, it was just like, oh, like you're too close. Or it was reflecting back to me things about myself. And I could see later on when I questioned, like, what is that? And journaled and meditated, it was like, yeah, there's certain challenges with intimacy there for me. And then when I went to improv theatre, it always turns out that the character, I was always an aggressive character. There was always this aggression in me. And when I did the same thing and questioned why, because I was aware of this, I realized, oh, you have unresolved anger. And so these things were all reflecting back to me parts of myself which I hadn't realized that I had because of PTSD. So I suffered some trauma as a child that came from abuse, and I had numbed it down. So I wasn't aware of a lot of stuff. I was very numb going through life. I was very sort of just wasn't aware of like a lot of my own emotions. And this was all being reflected back to me. And I did go to talk-based therapies, but I found that they didn't help me because I would talk around subjects and I would analyze. Oh my God, I was like analyzing Queen. So I could analyze, but it never kind of cut through until the creative arts, like it mirrored back to me parts of myself, which made me question. And through the question, I got an answer, and then I could talk about things. Then I could like sort of go, oh, I'm feeling like this. This is what, I did Aikido, and I felt this weird. Aikido is a Japanese martial arts, and it was only through the martial arts that I actually experienced what anxiety felt like in the body. Like I feel the sensation, and it was like somebody else had to say, "Oh, you're feeling anxious." It's like, oh, that's what anxiousness feels like in the body, right? Okay. So it was all these sort of activities, creative or movement activities that reflected back parts of myself and emotions and things that I could label. And I got to a point and I thought, you know what? I've been so frustrated because everything's in my world were black or white. I was either happy or sad. There wasn't all these other things that disappointed. All these other things in the middle didn't exist. And it felt quite frustrating at this point because I just realized that there are probably so many people out there that they may feel that when you go through abuse, it impacts your voice box. It just impacts your voice. There's a whole load of research as to why, and I don't know it, but there is. And so I just thought there's a whole load of people out there who probably have been impacted by abuse and or whatever, what other kind of trauma where they can't speak up. And therefore, talk-based therapies don't always work for those people. But what if they had access to things like art, where if they drew things and then were asked certain questions, they could see themselves or a part of their subconscious reflected back to them? And what if while they were dancing, they became more self-aware, or through acting allowed parts of themselves to be expressed that they wouldn't normally feel safe to express as themselves, but if they were a different character, it would feel more safe to express anger. And so after that, I thought, I want to make what I've learned available to other people. Initially it was women, and it was like, I want my whole thing was empowering women's self-expression through the creative arts, right? That became my thing. And I ran 2 events with a friend called Teresa, and we got people in who led workshops on art or dance or drama. And, we had 2 events, and we had women come and experience all sorts of breakthroughs and make all sorts of life decisions, like I'm going to definitely step into art as my career, or my relationship with my sisters got better. And so it was like, and I got, wow, it does work with other people, whether they feel stuck or not, it actually does work. And then I was talking to
Tell you what, before we go any further as well, because that's probably one of the most epic introductions I've ever had on the the Feel Inspired podcast, right? That's like taken almost half the length of the podcast.
I know, sorry.
No, don't say sorry, but like I think there's so much there that I want to kind of just delve in a little bit, because you obviously talked about, for example, the coaching, the traveling as well. And you mentioned this as well, the transformation through traveling, and now we've gone on to the improv, and obviously using arts as a form of healing as well. So we've kind of gone through a whole spectrum of things there. So during this whole process, like, I mean, obviously you've been through quite a lot. You've had a lot of moments of self-realization. Through all of this, do you feel like where you are at now is a huge reflection of this journey that you've been on? Like, do you think that everything that's happened, and especially the stuff that you've now done, has had a massive impact on who you are today? And do you think it's helped you heal some of that as well, some of the challenges that you've had?
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely feel it's given me a sense of self-confidence and of being able to do more things than I think I can do. And like, it's definitely shown me my commitment and my passion and desire to help other people. It's definitely helped me to voice my own self. Having like done this whole journey, the next step was me coming to the fact that I then did a TEDx talk, and to get on stage and to tell my story was a massive step. And I wouldn't have got to that point of being able to tell my story to help other people if I hadn't done this journey myself. For sure.
Yeah. So carry on where you left off then. So regarding the getting people into this healing through the improv arts and so on and so forth. And
well, the next stage was like, I started to think, okay, someone put me in contact with the Ministry of Gender Affairs. Sounds like a crazy title, but Ministry of Gender Affairs on the island of Dominica. And they were really interested in me running this kind of workshop to help the women there, because they suffer a lot of domestic violence. So they won't leave their partners who they're financially rely on. So when the police come, they won't even tell the police, because then they don't have like their financial supplies cut off. So the government there wanted to empower the women to step into entrepreneurship. So we were looking at how can I combine this process, because they were looking at alternative ways to do this with entrepreneurship and deliver a program. And so where it got to was I was looking for funding. And one of the things I did was then I actually came back from a 3-week solo trip around Brazil. And I felt that was a very healing journey. That's another conversation in itself. But I came back from Brazil very connected to myself, very connected to my intuition, and very connected to my creative power. And we all have this creative power in us. And sometimes when we're very aligned within, we make things happen faster by our words and by our actions and the opportunities that show up. And it felt like that moment where I thought, I need to raise credibility in what I'm doing here with these creative arts workshops to get funding. So I can then run this workshop in Dominica and other countries and get funding to run these workshops. And so I declared that I would do a TEDx talk by the end of, it was July 2019. And I said, December, by the end of the year, I'm going to do one. I just threw it out just to get me in action. And funny enough, I connected with someone on Facebook that week who had TEDx in her title, TEDx curator. So I said, oh, by the way, hey, how do you find speakers? How do you select speakers? I just want to know so I can prepare myself to be one next year. So I already chickened out because I went next year, right? And she was like, oh, why don't you send me over your idea? So I sent over I was like, I don't know, my idea is empowering women's self-expression through the creative arts. And she said, oh, can you send me a bit more about it? And can you send me some videos where you're talking so I can see what your on-stage presence is like? So I said, okay. So I worked with this woman that I met on a women's networking group who coaches people to be TEDx speakers. And she guided me on how to put this together. So I put it together, sent it across. And the lady came back to me and said, okay, we're full in TEDx Ljubljana, which is in the capital of Slovenia. She said, but I put you forward to a friend of mine in another town, Novo Mesto. And I thought, what? I said, no, I don't want to talk right now. I just want to know what I need to do to become a speaker. Anyway, a month later, this lady contacts me and she really likes my idea. And she thinks, so when you're applying for TEDx events, they're really looking at what's going to make a difference to my people, right? So she's coming from a country where people have war trauma. So Slovenia's got a lot of war trauma. People don't talk about it. It's there, and it's just kind of the way of life, right? So she was thinking, oh, could you kind of bring that to us from the angle of trauma? And I thought, oh, bloody hell, I don't want to talk about trauma. I'm not a trauma expert, and trauma sounds really scary. But I was like, okay. So I gave her 2 ideas, and I was kind of hoping she'd go more with my chosen idea rather than trauma. And she chose trauma. So I was like, right, great. So then from September to December, I would have, for the first few weeks, I had a call with her every 2 weeks, her and her team. So what they were doing is that they were helping the speakers to craft their talk together. So she'd listened to my idea, and then she said, okay, what I want you to do now is go away and put your story into it, right? So that was my first hurdle, because I thought, oh no, I have to be vulnerable and tell my story. I have to tell people about my background and my trauma. I don't want to do that. This is not just going to 100 people in the room. This is going to 1 million people on YouTube, family, friends, colleagues, ex-work colleagues. They're all going to know, I don't want them to know. I've kept it so well, hidden. And so that was the first. And I worked with a friend of mine who'd already done a TEDx talk to help me craft that. So I did that. And then I delivered it to them, and they said to me, are you reading this? I'm like, yes. They said, oh, can you go off and learn it off by heart? Oh my God, okay. So I went off and learned it off by heart. Then came the next challenge. We don't have enough English speaking coaches on our team, so we may have to take you off the list. And at that point, I felt relieved, because I thought, I don't have to tell my story, right? But I woke up the next morning and it was like, no, that's the first time I ever felt what might be similar to what people say, when they say it's a calling, because it was like, no, this isn't about you. This talk is about the difference you wanted to make to those people that talk-based therapies don't work for. And you wanted to give them you wanted to show them that there is a different method. That's who this talk is about. So go do what you need to do. So I ended up talking to the coach from the women's network, and she said, you tell them I'm going to coach you. And this woman charges £10,000, and she didn't charge me. She just worked with me. And the initial lady that I spoke to, she said, I'll come on the calls and translate for you. So it's like I had a team, and everything that was meant to be my calling was pulling me forward, even through these sort of hurdles. So I went back to the lady and I said, this lady's going to coach me and this person's going to come on the calls. And she couldn't say no. She was like, okay. So I worked with her all the way up to December. And I'll tell you, some of the challenges I had was like feeling like an imposter. The imposter syndrome was,
Imposter syndrome is massive, right? So massive.
because I didn't classify myself as an expert, not in trauma, not in the creative arts, but I had this idea and I had tested it and it worked for me. And I had to get my mindset to the fact that the expertise is mine, the fact that it worked. And so I had good people around me, very encouraging friends around me that like encouraged me to keep going and coached me out of that imposter syndrome. And then like I got there, I flew to Slovenia, and I was now, my self-sabotage was showing up. I was late to the airport. I didn't print my ticket off. So she said, no, don't worry. And I've bumped you up to first class. I was like,
Oh, nice.
and then, you know, along the journey, like someone comes along and goes, let me carry your suitcase. I said, okay. You know, so all these little things that I'm scared, I want to run, but everything is like the universe is going, no, we're going to make this, like, we're going to help you through this. And I got there, I got to the event, and we practiced on stage the night before. And what was interesting was everyone spoke Slovenian, and I was the only one that spoke in English. And so that was quite an experience in itself. And it was great. And they had a speaker coach there that worked with us a little bit. I had my speaker coach that I worked with. I also ended up coaching or doing a healing session with one of the other speakers, because she was very nervous. So we did a grounding session with her, which was brilliant because I got to know the other speakers that way. And I learned all these different ways to calm the nerves, to allocate, I can't even speak, for voice allocution, to stay grounded. And, you know, the next day I'd practice my talk, and I was taught this crazy method by one of the other women, which is called shaking, right? So it's a trauma release exercise, which I thought you did only when you had trauma, but she was told by an actress to do it while you're practicing your lines. So there I was in the morning reading my script twice and shaking to like, I don't know, embed it in my memory or whatever, but I did it. And after that, I stopped. And I got there, my makeup was done, my hair was done, I felt like $1 million. And I went on that stage when they called my name out. I was nervous. The first few seconds, I was really nervous. And then I generally got into my flow. And I really loved it. I really enjoyed sharing my message. What was funny was my sweater. I have a little black sweater that I was wearing. And it was hanging. I thought I took it off when I sat on the chair. And when I went up on the stage, it was hanging off the back of my mic thing at the back of me. So it looks like I got a tail. When you watch my TEDx talk on YouTube, you'll see I've got a tail. And then at some point it dropped and fell on the ground. And so I'm moving, and I could feel something underneath my feet while I'm talking. And I realized so I'm not on my own. There's my little comfy sweater on the red dot with me. And it was just one of those moments where some people might have got upset and said, oh, should I take this off? Should we remove it from the video? And I said, no, keep it. It's very natural. It's quite funny. But that was probably like, once I finished and got off that stage, it was just one of the most incredible moments was to have people come up to me and say, oh, my dad doesn't understand much English, but he understood everything you said. And another woman came up to me and said, I could really relate to things that you shared. And now I'm going to start looking at going to the gym, or someone else, you know, like some of the things that I had shared in the talk about things to do from the creative perspective. People were coming up to me and going, I'm going to take this on, or I'm going to try this. And I've literally had that for the last almost 2 years. I've still get emails saying, I've just watched your talk. And there was a guy that emailed me and said, I've watched your talk, and now I'm using it to help a friend of mine that's been through something similar. So the thing about doing anyone that's considering doing one is that it becomes your legacy. One, it becomes your legacy and your CV for your message that you want to get out there, and your brand that you want to get out there, but it's just so rewarding to get messages back to say it's made a difference to me, and I love that. So that was kind of my long-winded answer to your question of how I got to being on the TEDx stage and a TEDx speaker. And then a year later, in 2020, December, it was a year anniversary, and it was COVID. And I decided, I want to celebrate. How do I celebrate 1 year of doing my TEDx talk? And a friend of mine, Gurjit, she said, why don't you do a workshop, a masterclass, and just give it away? And I said, okay. So I set up a masterclass to give away to others, that it's really possible to share your idea with the world. So here's a TEDx masterclass of how to get onto the stage. And then they became so popular that I just kept on doing them, and then created a couple of programs for putting the pitch together, putting your talk together, and helping people to get on the stage. And it's very rewarding. One, it's rewarding, but two, like, my God, everyone's got a story in them. You hear that, but everyone has a story in them. People came on the masterclass and they were just like, I don't know what I'd talk about. And then you delve in and you're like, well, you can talk about that's great. And everyone's like, really? It's like, well, yeah, and it's great. It's just one of the most rewarding things that I get to do. And it's such a breakthrough for someone that didn't feel connected to their authentic self-expression and voice, and then enabling other people to do that, either through creative art programs or through getting on a TEDx stage. And so the next thing now is enabling people to travel, to do solo travel is all part of the self-expression kind of banner, under the self-expression banner as well.
What an amazing story and what you've been through, and then to do something like this. And again, several things that come out of this, what you just said. One is the whole kind of idea of setting this intention and being able to make it happen. And two, facing probably was one of your bigger fears, which is obviously getting in front of people. And especially, it's different when you're performing, but actually to speak to an audience is actually a very different thing. It's a very challenging thing.
Can I say something about that, Amit?
Please do. Yeah, absolutely.
So, that I learned there's a difference, and I learned this in myself as well. When I get on stage and perform and I'm someone else, it's easy. When I get on stage and deliver a corporate presentation, it's easy. Facts. Getting on stage and doing the vulnerable thing and talking about yourself, for me, that was the nerve-wracking thing. So that's one thing. And the second thing is, doing a TEDx talk is very different to doing like a keynote speech or any other kind of talk, because the emphasis is really the idea worth spreading, not like, talking about your business or, talking about something related to work or something like that. It was very different because you had to keep it. And TED has a key rules, certain rules that you have to follow when you deliver your talk. But yeah, you definitely saw that talking about and being vulnerable was really challenging, in front of always keeping in mind that I'm not just talking to the 100 people in the room. I'm talking to the 1 million people that are going to watch on YouTube.
Yeah, it's so true, right? Because you just don't know when your message is going to have an impact or just suddenly go viral. And that's happened to so many people who've done TED Talks, right? They did it, it went up, and initially there was probably not much traction or whatever. And then suddenly that talk just goes boom, viral, and it goes absolutely crazy. I know a few people have talked about this as well. And one of my favorite TED Talks of all time was by a gentleman who's passed away now, but so Ken Robinson. Yeah. And, his talk obviously, was one of the most watched TED Talks ever. And I interviewed him actually on one of my radio shows back in the day, and he was talking about that. Yeah, and because he and I shared the same birthday, so I used that as a lead-in when I pitched him to get him on my radio show. Bless him. Obviously, he passed away a couple of years ago, but he was such a lovely guy. And he was talking about how he was at the time was in competition with, as being one of the most watched, YouTube videos, and in competition with some bunch of cats or something. He had a brilliant sense of humor. He did.
He did.
But again, like that really, I mean, he's always been well known, but obviously that skyrocketed his profile from being, locally well known to being worldwide famous. And he had a brilliant message to share as well about education and so on. And so it just goes to show you never know where and when your audience, your audience is going to be reached and how. And this is the power of it. I'm definitely going to pick your brain more as well, because I think it's on my bucket list to do a TED talk. And as you know, right, whenever I send a message to all my podcast guests and I say, what do you want the title to be? And I always say to them, think of your ideal TED talk. What is it you really want to talk about? Because it comes from you. It's about you. It's about your story, your journey up until this point, all the things you've been through. And we forget sometimes just how much that can have an impact on people, how much that, people need to hear sometimes, oh, holy crap, someone's been through something similar to me, or if they could do it, I could do it, or anything of the like. Pick your juice there, and that's what happens. So yeah. So and what I'm going to do, by the way, I will make sure that I tag your TED video in the links afterwards, and I'm just going to do a very quick apology right now as well. I know this is live and I probably shouldn't be doing it, but for some reason, I just noticed when I was looking on Facebook, the title that came up on the video was New Year's special offer, matchmaking silver server. I don't know how this has happened. It should have been as it says on the top of the screen. Yeah, how to become a TEDx speaker. I have no idea. Like, I am completely lost on how this happened. So some people are joining this talk probably thinking, what is going on right now? Like, are you talking about matchmaking or what?
About matchmaking. No.
It's fortunate that I spotted it and I was like, oh my God, what's happened? Yeah, honestly, like, I mean, I have no clue how this has happened. I'm a technical person as well. But so for anyone who's expecting talks about matchmaking right now, no, it's not happening. This is about becoming a TEDx speaker.
Sorry.
And finding your story and being able to tell your story as well. Like, I think that's a big thing in itself, right? Obviously in jest said that's probably one of the most epic introductions. And I think, but actually I joke, but that is a testament to you just telling your story and just thinking, let me go with it. Let me just go with the flow and just tell everyone about my life story. And that's okay. And that's perfect. And like, it just goes to show, because normally you ask people that question and usually it's over in about 2 minutes. But you just kind of went on this flow of just, telling everyone what you've been through up until this point. I think that's a beautiful thing.
What's your journey, Amit? So that was my journey.
but literally, though, like, some people I ask that question, and again, like, there's no offense to anyone at all, or like, not taking away anything from anyone. But sometimes I ask people that question and it's a 2-minute answer. And you've definitely smashed any kind of record in that as well, like over 40 minutes or something. Which brilliant. No, but it's absolutely brilliant.
Can I just clarify something there? When we talk about doing TEDx, TEDx isn't really about telling your story, right? TEDx is about sharing an idea that you think is worth spreading. But sometimes that idea comes from either our own life experiences, like mine did, or it can come from you think you have a solution to a problem that is out there in the world, and you've done your research or you've questioned people and you've got the answers and you want to share this as the solution. I mean, TED stands for Technology, Entertainment, and Design. So usually they're looking for talks around ideas around technology, entertainment, and design. They have the education piece now, and they also have the climate change piece now. But there are a lot of talks on mental health and things like that, which you can kind of tie under one of those, either related to tech or entertainment or design. But generally, that's what it's about. And I guess one of the reasons why I gave such a long introduction as well is to show you that there was a journey that led to an idea. And then it was the idea that I wanted to spread. So if it was just about me, I would have stopped at when they said no, because I was shit scared about sharing my story. But it wasn't about me. My story was just that little bit in there to say, this is the evidence to back up this idea that I have. And that idea is going to make, like, I think that will work for other people in the world. So if anyone's thinking about it, that's listening, really have a look at what keeps you up at night. You know, do you think you have a solution to a problem that's going on in the world that you want to share on a TEDx stage? Or, you know, you have an idea that you think is worth spreading that may resolve something in climate change or in education, or, you know, like Ken Robinson's talk was so simple. Like, schools are killing creativity. We need more creative. That was literally his idea, right?
Yeah.
But everything else was delivery. Like, he made teachers that go to a school meeting funny.
Yeah,
So
or discotheque. They got
yeah, you know what I
and
mean?
all they do is bobble their heads around. But every bit of movement from their body is completely devoid.
Exactly. So all it is like, your idea could be so simple, but, you know, if you work with somebody somebody on the way it's delivered, you know, it could really create an impact out there. It could create the desired impact you want, or it could be, you know, it might be what your business, the solution that your business provides, but you believe in it so much, and you don't talk about the business, and but you talk about that idea, and you give the evidence, and, you know, stats are good, quotes are good, maybe a couple of examples from your life or what you've seen are good, to back it up. And it doesn't have to be long. The funniest and the shortest TEDx talk was about 3 or 4 minutes. And it's
Was
this
that the
guy.
one where he talks about how to do a TED talk? You pause and then
No.
was it not that one? Oh, because that one is brilliant. By the way, again, if anyone hasn't seen that, it's fantastic.
That one's funny, but this one is like how to only use one paper towel to dry your hands. And there's this
Nice.
guy who's got this table, and he's got water and paper towel, and he literally soaks his hand, and he gets this one paper towel, he wipes his hand, he folds the paper towel one way, wipes his hand, folds the paper towel the other way, wipes his hand, and puts it in the bin. And he does it 3 times to demonstrate the point. That is how you save paper towels and how you save the world, you know, like all of that. So you see, the idea is so simple, but the delivery could be very engaging, could be very interesting. So there's a few things to think about when you're doing your talk.
Well, my idea is all around dating, of course, naturally, as it would be. And it's around making dating fun again. And because I think that's, yeah, I think, and you know, I put up a TikTok video, and I think this is more, there's actually, when I did this video, I just did it like it was a random one late at night, but actually, I think there's a lot to be said for the idea. And I said that it's, you know, one of the biggest secrets around dating is that the reason we have so many issues right now is because in the old-fashioned days, we say old-fashioned, that's a bit of a poor term, but in the old-fashioned days, we knew our roles. We knew what we were supposed to do. And because everyone knew what they were supposed to do, dating was easy. But and not to say that equality is a bad thing, but because we have this now notion of equality and, you know, redefine gender roles, etc., no one knows what to do anymore. And because no one knows what to do, dating has become a pain in the ass for most people. Whereas obviously I retrain people to remind them of what our roles can be, what we can choose to do. And it can be incredibly, exceptionally fun. And it doesn't have to be boring and mundane and a rote routine where you just ask and interrogate the other person with, you know, a set number of questions of how are you, what do you do, where are you from, where do you know, all of that kind of stuff. And we can make it so joyous. And, you know, and I always say to everyone that for me, my dating journey was such that, you know, I got to a point where I loved dating so much I almost didn't want to meet someone twice, in two very separate scenarios. I met someone, the second one, of course, being my wife, and I was like, you know, she was like, let's get serious. Like, of course, you know, I joke a little bit, but she's like, let's get serious, and I'm like, oh, I'm just loving dating, though. Do we have to? And you know, that's kind of how it rolled, though. Was I almost wanted to remain single because I was having so much fun doing it, and such a shame that I see some of these videos by these millennials and Gen Zs on TikTok, and they're so miserable and so down on dating, but you don't have to be like that. You really don't.
No. I haven't dated in a while because I'm in a relationship. So I haven't dated in a while. So I don't know what But I remember when
It's more recent than I mean, the last time I actually dated was back in 2015. But even then, I was on dating apps like Plenty of Fish, Tinder, etc. And all of that swipe dating was, was fully in existence at that point in time. So it's certainly possible for everyone. But I think we get so caught up in the grind and just the
it's so funny, Amit, though, because when you were talking about dating, I was thinking, gosh, in my 20s, it was so painful. That whole question, it was like, what do you do? What did your mom do? What did your dad do?
Yep.
So the
Pretty
most
much sums it up.
uninspired questions to get to know somebody, but probably mostly influenced by the arranged marriage kind of culture. But it was just very uninspiring when I think back now. Like, what do you do? What did your mom do? What did your dad do? What village are you from? What do you do in your spare time? What kind of movies do you like? It's like, okay.
It's so funny you should say that, because this is exactly one of the things I talk about, especially in South Asian culture, because we've not been brought up with dating. That is, our parents never did it. So no one's actually ever told us what dating can be like. Whereas our English counterparts, for example, perhaps their grandparents told stories of how they were, wooed their grandmother or wooed their grandfather, whatever. So they have some idea, right? There's this romantic notion associated, so they have some idea, whereas we weren't born with that. So I had to go learn this all by myself. And then, I made it my mission in life to teach other people that they can have fun with it.
Brilliant.
And so so I think that would be my ideal TED talk, would be something to put the fun back into dating, or something like that, or making dating fun, not formal.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I may be I am doing a program in Feb, towards the end of Feb, so we should talk.
Definitely, yeah, absolutely, 100%. Yeah, count me in.
Fantastic. We'll do that.
And I want to get on the big TED stage, not just the X's. I'm just joking.
We'll see what we can do.
Yeah, no, I'm just teasing. No, but yeah, some of those. I mean, I don't know about you, but I do watch a lot of TED talks, and I absolutely love them. And for anyone out there, by the way, like I said, I will include Vaishali's TED talk in the link as well. I've just literally brought it up on the screen, so it reminds me to do it. It was TEDx Novomesto. Is that right? Did I say that right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. And the title of the talk as well, if you want to search for it yourself, is Your Body's Intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. So I have a confession to make at this point. I haven't actually seen your TED talk yet, so I'm going to make sure I watch it. I know.
Yeah. And you know what? If you like it, leave a comment. I'm shamelessly asking for that.
I'm gonna leave a comment saying, "Please, this is amazing. Please, can I have an autograph?" Or I love it.
Oh, brilliant.
No, you've been an absolutely brilliant guest, I have to say, Vaishali, and it's been a wonderful pleasure having you on. And no doubt we will talk more about the other things you mentioned as well that we haven't delved into, like your trip around Brazil. And I think this idea as well, I do want to go into this idea about traveling, because I'm not much of a traveler. I haven't done much traveling up until this point, but and I've got to be honest, I'm not a huge traveler as well. I like to go on holidays, but I'm not a huge traveler. But I think I'd love to learn more about it, because like what you just mentioned as well about, grabbing, finding some random strangers and hiring a car and going across, New Zealand. I think that's, to me, that's just amazing. I love that idea. And being able to kind of share that idea with youngsters in this day and age, that you can go and have some adventures and do it safely and fun. And hopefully when the world returns to some kind of sense of normality and everything is opened up, and you can go start enjoying that kind of stuff again.
The thing is, you can start now. You can start now. Solo travel doesn't have to be going to the other side of the world. You can do it in your own country, in your own city. Just go and explore parts that you've never seen. It doesn't have to be big like that until you're comfortable with it. So yeah, I'm a big advocate for people, especially women, traveling solo. I keep honing it down to women, but I do get a lot of men that read my blog and interested in my travel stories, which is really interesting, because I mainly try to encourage and support women to do it, because I feel that there's a more fear there, traveling as a lone woman. But I interviewed 30 women for a book that I'm having come out in a couple of months. And it's them telling their stories of how they traveled solo and the transformations they experienced. So it's less about the location, but more about the inner journey. And
Oh no, I was just going to say. So tell us what's the name of the book and when is it coming out? When people expect it?
I haven't named it yet. I have a few names going on at the moment, and I'm just like going through the editing process of it, which is so inspiring to, one, initially get the stories, and then two, read them again. And like, gosh, some of the stories, like some women, one woman, it's not available yet. Sorry, just to answer your question. It's not available yet, but when it will be, I'll definitely let you know. And it will be on my Instagram page as well. It's just incredible. Like, some people think solo travel is just you get your backpack and you go around the world, and you might see things and then you come back a little different, and you might make a different life decision. But actually, some of the women that I interviewed, they're your everyday women. One of them planned to end her life on a solo travel trip. So she was in Canada. She was a theatre. She did musical theatre, but lost her voice and got divorced, and she kind of was at a really low point, and she decided she was going to go to Spain, max out her credit card, and end her life. And as it turns out, mum found out. She ended up going to Spain, but actually learning to love her life, her parts of like her strengths and stuff. And she ended up going back to Canada and becoming an actress and pursuing that dream. And another woman who was an air steward, and she would take 60-day trips at a time where she was away from home for, I think it's 60 days. And she did that because what she was learning to build her resilience and her strengths to leave her husband where she was experiencing domestic violence. So she was using it as a space where she could build the confidence in herself to be by herself.
Yeah.
And then there were women who, completely changed their career as a result of, going to Scotland, and had an interview with the dean for a university who said, you need to bring your self-expression to your psychology doctorate. And so she bought this music, she tapped into music, and now she's a musician and she does songs for mental health. So it's things that they discovered about themselves that they then were able to combine with what they were originally doing. One of them met the love of her life and is married now for 11 years. And there's just so many beautiful stories about what you can do on a solo travel trip. And solo, a lot of people that you talk to doesn't always mean solo, because you end up meeting people, or you end up doing a tour, right? So some areas in the world, I wouldn't go on my own. When I went to Western Australia, up in the northwest of Australia, there's not much infrastructure. So I went with a tour company, but I had to be with a group of strangers on my own and get to know them and all of things like that. So you're never really on your own. There's always a sense of adventure, whatever way you choose to have it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've got something dropping as well on the 22nd of Feb, but that's a surprise for now.
It is.
Which is wonderful. So for anyone out there who's loved your story today and the ideas that you shared, where can they reach out to you?
So at the moment, I have my Instagram page, which is Vaishali, Vaishali _TEDx. So feel free to follow me. Feel free to send me a message, ask me any questions. And I think that's probably the best place at this stage to contact me.
Lovely. I'll make sure I include the link to that as well. So It's a pleasure having you on. Actually, I've really enjoyed our conversation today. I've loved learning. And funny enough, even though we've known each other for so long, I actually learned some things about you today that I didn't know. So it's been a fascinating conversation today. I've really enjoyed it.
Oh, me too. And I can't wait to like work with you on your talk and get you on that TED stage.
That's it. I'll be there. I'll be there like the thunder, baby. No, honestly, I've got so much to say, and so they're gonna have to try and drag me off if they ever put me on. They'd have to try and drag me off the stage, I think.
Yeah, I think that's going to start with me going, no. Yes,
yeah,
go try and do it your way, Amit. Stick to the script.
Probably. And yeah, no, I think we've got everything we wanted to know. So I just wanted to leave you with saying firstly, thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing all those lovely insights. And to anyone else watching, you've been listening to the Feel Inspired podcast. If you've just joined at the end, don't worry, this will all be uploaded and you can listen on all of the major podcasting platforms very shortly. And I will update the video so it's actually got all the official stuff and it just doesn't say, oh, look, matchmaking special offer. Honestly, I am so perplexed. When I saw that come up, I got distracted for a second. I was like, huh? It's just very bizarre. I have no idea how this happened. I've got to try and figure this out so it doesn't happen on any future ones. But anyway.
Maybe it's a future career for me to become a matchmaker. Who knows?
It could be. We can swap places as well if you like. You can do the matchmaking. I'll go do the TED stuff. Oh dear, it's been fun. It's been so much fun. Thank you again, Vaishali, and definitely, I'm sure we're going to have you on again at some point in the very near future.
I'd love that. Thank you so much, Amit, for the opportunity.
Right. You too. Thank you. Stay with me. I'm going to end the live, and to everyone else as well. I hope you all feel inspired after that, and I'll see you on the next episode, which is going to be Thursday the 10th with an incredible entrepreneur coming on the show as well. So Thursday the 10th at 4 p.m. I'll see you all on the next episode. Ciao.